So in a lot of my videos, I talk about the importance of social skills and how they can solve pretty much any problem you might come across when playing RPGs, which is true. But then I thought, what if someone's watching this and they feel they don't possess social skills or like they can't learn them? I know. I'll teach them how to develop them.
Yeah, that's easy for you to say. You're naturally charismatic.
Well, not exactly. It was a really long road for me to become the charming rapscallion that you see before you. And so this week, I want to take you down that road and share how I went from a kid who was too scared to get a haircut because I didn't want the attention to the loud, boisterous, obnoxious YouTuber you see today. And yes, I'm pretty much like this all the time around other people. 20 years ago, I was in second grade, which is really weird to think about. And at recess, everyone would play soccer on the field. There were two teams. The boys' team had what you would call elementary school chads, who were all super athletic and cool. The girls' team had all the girls who played hella soccer, and all the boys who weren't athletic in the slightest. I fucking sucked at soccer, so I was on the girls' team. We wore blue. However, despite my lack of athleticism, I got along with pretty much everyone in elementary school. Everyone treated me with respect. I was never bullied, and, despite being rather quiet and picked last in every single sport that we played, it really wasn't that bad of a time. But then in middle school, my family moved to North Carolina. Now, here's the thing about Southern children. They're fucking assholes. I was the California kid, so naturally I got bullied by everyone. Probably because everyone's inbred parents told their children that people from California were like the spawn of Satan or something. I'm clearly not bitter about this in the slightest. Seriously though, it was really bad actually. I got made fun of all the time, and literally every single day of 7th grade, I got the shit beaten out of me in the locker room in PE. It was pretty fucked up. As you can imagine, this really hurt my confidence and self-image. So I spent most of middle school not really talking to anyone outside of my friends who were also fellow bullied kids. Things started to change for me in 10th grade. You see, every single kid in a North Carolina public school has to take 2 years of a second language. My school offered Spanish, French, and Latin. Now, I wasn't a turbo loser, and I had taken a little bit of Spanish in elementary school, so naturally I took French. My first real breakthrough when it came to my social skills was when we had a verbal assignment to describe our favorite breakfast. I was going through a bit of a pancake phase at the time, so I wanted to say that my favorite breakfast was pancakes. But of course, the French are healthy and sophisticated and don't consume copious amounts of sugar every single morning, so they don't have a word for pancakes. And no, crepes are not pancakes. So, my genius ass went up in front of everyone and said that my favorite breakfast was fat crepes, and everyone laughed. The thing is, entertaining people takes a lot of risk. People might not laugh at your jokes, or they might not be moved by your story in the slightest, and that uncertainty is very uncomfortable. But when I was in an environment where everyone was uncomfortable, it made it a lot easier to try and break out of my shell a little. Anyway, even though I was kind of crushing it in French class, I felt like a huge loser in literally every other situation in school. And I think the main culprit of this was a friendship from middle school that I had clung on to way too long. Despite being like best friends in middle school, this kid and I had vastly different interests by the time we both hit high school. He and his new friends would go party on weekends, and I would party up to raid Mount Highjall. Then the next week at lunch, they would all be talking about the sick Project X party that Tanner had at his uncle's farm outside of town, and I would just be sitting there, eating my peanut butter and jelly sandwich in silence, wondering if anyone really cared that I was there. And this sort of semblance of feeling like I don't really belong and like people didn't really want me there hung on until college. I mean, I did make new friends later on in high school when I discovered things I actually enjoyed, but I always kind of felt like an outside observer to these groups and never like I was a part of the group. Does that kind of make sense? But the good news is I graduated in the spring and I set off onto my next adventure. Appalachian State University. And at Appalachian State University, during my fall semester, I did something that I never thought I would ever do in a million years. In fact, up until decision time, I said I wasn't going to do it. But first, you gotta know, I knew exactly one person going into college. Ironically, it was my best friend growing up, Nick.
Champions running in.
Wasn't planned, just kind of happened. Anyway, one day, old Nicky boy hits me up and says, "Hey man, I'm hanging out with some friends at this bar. Do you want to come by?" And I didn't want to repeat my mistakes from high school of not really getting involved in anything. So I said, yeah, sure, why not? I'll be right there. So I go to this bar and everyone there is like super fucking chill. And some of them even shared my weird history interests as well. It was a great time. And then I noticed they were all wearing the same shirts. Then I noticed they were all bringing up the same 3 Greek letters when talking to other kids. And then I got asked why I wanted to pledge a fraternity. Despite being a turbo dork nerd loser, I somehow got a call to come back to the next event tomorrow. And I think I ended up going to like 3 of these events by the end of the week. That Friday, I got a call from the rush chair asking if I wanted to pledge that fraternity. And so I did. And it honestly ended up being one of the best things I ever did for myself. And I think there's 2 reasons for this. One, I ended up meeting my best friends of all time. Still talk to them. We play Fortnite together. It's a great time. They're probably watching this video right now. If you are, you're probably gonna roast me, but whatever. And the thing is, having a group of people that actually want you around and, value you for you is huge, especially when you spent your entire life not really ever having that. Anyways, the second reason is that joining the fraternity put me in uncomfortable situations that I could grow from. And no, I'm not talking like elephant walks and shit like that. App State's not nearly that fratty. The worst hazing we ever had to do was like push-ups. No, I'm talking about social situations that I had never really been in before. Like for example, prior to college and joining the fraternity, I had been to like 1 party ever. We threw philanthropies. We had to solicit other organizations to give us money for our philanthropy. And spring semester, they put me in charge. Not like president or anything, but I was on the executive board, which was fucking crazy. Trust me, nothing makes you grow like being put in charge of 60 douchebags. Growth never comes from a place of comfort. And joining this fraternity and getting involved in all these social situations and getting put to a leadership position was very uncomfortable for me. But it also produced a ton of growth for me. Now, I do have a ton of stories for those days, but those might be for another video, and I still have one more major, milestone that I have to talk about. See, my junior year of college, I needed a job. My legendary 6-month run at Applebee's had come to a close about 6 months prior. The GM wanted me to work on spring break, and I didn't want to, so I quit. So I applied for this waiting job at this tourist trap that we'll call Canyons, because that's the name of the restaurant, and it closed down, so what's the point in hiding the name anymore? And the thing is, I had a pulse and could answer the GM's questions without being weird. So naturally, I got the job. And getting this job would pretty much change the entire trajectory of the last 2.5 years of my college career. It would also end up leading to the wildest 1.5 years of my entire life. But those are stories for another time. What mattered about this job change is that instead of seating people and bussing tables, which is what I did at Applebee's, I actually got to serve people. I mean, I also ended up getting a ton of hosting and bussing shifts because it turns out I'm really bad at waiting tables when it's busy, but whatever, that's not important. What is important is that when you wait tables, you end up developing hundreds, if not thousands of micro relationships with people. At the bare minimum, you learn what their tastes are just based on what they order when they come in. And if someone's feeling in a really friendly mood, you will have a very long extended conversation with them. You're gonna learn a lot about them. They're probably gonna learn a lot about you, at least if you're like me. Now, the thing is, when you develop micro relationships with people over and over and over again, you start to get really freaking good at it. They're called social skills for a reason. And so through those repeated micro relationships and interactions that I had with people, I started to develop an intuition for when people wanted to talk to you, or get an idea of what people are feeling like, or at the bare minimum, whether or not an old lady is hitting on you because her husband just died, or if she truly does think you're just a charming, handsome young man. And these skills that I developed through talking to people over and over and over again have served me really, really well later on in my life. Like, I am 100% positive that I would have never gotten my current day job if it weren't for my ability to talk to people, which I got by talking to people, by being forced to talk to people, by waiting tables. So if there's an actionable item in this video, if you really want to improve your social skills, it's get a job in a restaurant waiting tables. That is the quickest, easiest way to do it, guaranteed. Anyway, despite how far I've come throughout my life, I'm still growing, and I still struggle with things even to this day, which may shock you. Like, for example, I find talking to random people fucking terrifying.
But didn't you talk to random people waiting tables?
Yeah, exactly. And the people that I talked to waiting tables actually wanted to be talked to, or at the very least, they had to talk to me if they wanted food, which is why they came into the restaurant in the first place. You know who doesn't want to fucking talk to me? Random people on the street, random people in bars, random people at the gym, you name it. They don't want to talk to me. At least that's the inner monologue that I have with myself. I'm working on it. The point is, I'm still growing, and so are you. That's just life. That's normal. So I'm gonna shut up now. If you made it this far, you should totally click on whatever video the YouTube algorithm shows you right here. And thank you so much for watching.